warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
We are from the group 2 when I explain about the history of public speaking. Okay, I will start. About 2,500 years ago in ancient Athens, men were required to give effective speech as part of their duties as citizens. The key word here is effective because they have much to gain or lose depending upon their level of eloquence. High political office and wealth came to those with the right connections and a ready wit. Those who failed to speak well could possibly lose their land, and in property disputes should they be unable to argue well their cases when should pay a neighbor and end up selling themselves into slavery as debtors. Okay friends, I will translate what I said. Sekitar 2500 tahun yang lalu, di Athena kuno, laki-laki diharuskan untuk memberikan spesifikasi yang efektif sebagai bagian dari tugas mereka sebagai warga negara. Kata kunci mereka adalah efektif, karena mereka memiliki banyak keuntungan atau kerugian tergantung pada tingkat kefasihan mereka dalam berbicara dengan bahasa Inggris. Kantor politik yang tinggi dan kekayaan yang datang kepada mereka harus memiliki koneksi kefasihan dalam berbicara mereka. Jika tidak memiliki hal tersebut, mereka akan gagal dalam memiliki tanah dan memiliki perekonomian yang telah mereka janjikan. Okay, we'll look at part A, Rise of Athens. Bangkitnya Athena kuno. Keep in mind that Athens was the intellectual center of the Greek world by the 5th century BCE. BCE it means sebelum Masehi. Athens had been at war with her neighbors for over a century. New philosophies were crippling in from Ionia or modern Turkey, and religious beliefs were on the decline. The modern parallel might be the age of enlightenment or reason in the 17th and 18th centuries, when creation of men's intellectual endeavor and the questioning of culture and faith tradition took hold. Okay, I will explain about what I said. Bangkitnya Athena. Ingatlah bahwa Athena adalah pusat intelektual dunia yang kelima sebelum Masehi. Athena telah berperang dengan tetangga-tetangganya selama lebih dari seabad. Filosofi baru mengalir di Ionia atau yang disebut dengan Turki modern. Dan kepercayaan agama sedang menurun. Kepercayaan agama mereka menurun pada zaman itu, paralel modern. Mungkin zaman pencerahan atau alasan disebut mereka. Pada abad ke-17 dan ke-18, ketika rasionalitas upaya intelektual manusia dan pertanyaan budaya dan agama tradisi memegang kendali. Athens is located right on the sea, would have had significant contact with other cultures because of trade routes which brought goods and people to the city via the sea. Oke, Athens ini berlokasi di laut. Athens is located right on the sea and would have had significant contact. Terletak tepat di laut dan akan memiliki kontak yang signifikan dengan budaya yang lain karena rute perdagangan yang mereka bawa dan orang kota harus melalui laut yang akan mereka jalani dan populasi yang cukup besar untuk mendukung perdagangan mereka khusus dan aktivitas intelektual harus melalui alur laut. Faktanya, populasi mungkin sebesar 300.000 sebelum kelahiran Socrates, tergantung pada sumber warga. Sumber mana yang Anda temukan. Warga kemudian akan menjadi cukup besar tetapi masih berfungsi. Namun ingatlah bahwa warga hanya akan menjadi bagian dari populasi dan bahwa orang Athena hanya akan mulai memikirkan mereka adalah kota yang bertentangan dengan kelompok kerabatan segera setelah Solon setuju dengan pemberi hukum. We are go to the last paragraph. There were no lawyers, and since people sued each other frequently, it was important that each citizen be able to represent himself and his family. In addition, as the assembly and other democratic reforms became more important, the cultural notion of the citizen orator emerged. Tidak ada pengacara, dan karena orang sering saling menggugat, penting bagi warga negara untuk bisa mewakili dirinya sendiri dan keluarganya. Selain itu, ketika assembly dan reformasi demokratis lainnya menjadi lebih penting, gagasan budaya orator warga mulai berkurang. We look at part B, Rise of the Citizen Orator. Bangkitnya warga orator. Keep in mind that many Athenian citizens actually knew each other. When they weren't related, they would have been educated together, searched together in war, and debated one another in public assembly. In fact, the citizen not only had the right to be a member of the assembly or erotages or to be elected a magistrate, he had a duty to do so. Bangkitnya warga orator Kop dalam benaknya bahwa banyak warga Athena benar-benar mengenal Cece lainnya. Ketika mereka tidak memiliki kerabat, mereka akan dididik bersama-sama, bertugas bersama dalam perang, dan berdebat satu sama lain dengan pertemuan publik. Bahkan, warga negara tidak hanya memiliki untuk menjadi anggota majelis atau menjadi allocated a magistrate, ia juga memiliki kewajiban untuk melakukannya. We go to the last paragraph. These early teachers were labeled sophists. Guru-guru akan dilabelin sebagai filosofis. They accepted money for teaching public speaking as a skill, including how to argue either side of an argument. Guru-guru awal ini diberi kelas, diberi label sofis. Mereka menerima uang untuk mengajar berbicara di depan umum sebagai keterampilan, termasuk bagaimana cara berdebat di kedua sisi argumen. From this we draw our modern concept of the Socratic method, a dialogue between instructor and student, in which the instructor extends remarks made by the student to some logical and which the student must justify. Dari sini kita menggambarkan konsep modern tentang metode Sokratik, dialog antara instruktur dan siswa, di mana instruktur memperluas pernyataan yang dibuat oleh siswa hingga akhirnya siswa yang memiliki alasan yang logis yang harus dijustifikasikan di dalam kelas. Okay, the next explanation will explain by Wendy Amalia.
Okay, I will continue my explanation about rise of the art of oratory, yaitu munculnya seni pidato. Although Plato published dialogues and possibly letters with Socrates as his main character, he was uneasy with the written word. We have evidence of literacy in Greece as early as the 8th century BCE, and existing recordings from the time, but our sense as rhetorical scholars is that the culture was primarily oral. So, in this section, Plato menyiarkan dialog dan surat-surat dengan Socrates dan sebagai karakter utamanya. Dia tidak nyaman dengan kata-kata tulisannya, jadi mereka memiliki beberapa bukti literasi tertulis. Jadi mereka memiliki bukti melek huruf di Yunani pada awal abad ke-8 sebelum Masehi. So, how do we know what these foundational teachers of oratory said? We are left with materials written by others, perhaps students, explaining their express thoughts and practice as reflected by whomever took notes. Jadi kita dibiarkan dengan bahan-bahan yang ditulis oleh orang lain, memaparkannya serta dalam pemikiran dan praktek mereka yang diungkapkan di beberapa catatannya. What's remarkable is that we have so many documents and that they have stood the test of time so well. We also have the decrees of Pericles 495 until 429 BCE, the father of democracy. The writings of the historian Thucydides 460 until 400 BCE, and works attributed to Hippocrates 460 until 377 BCE, the father of Western medicine. If you look at the dates defining the lives of these three men, then compare them to the deaths of the three orators we consider the founders of classical oratory. You will notice how Socrates was a contemporary of all three, and that Plato, who was a student of Socrates, would have been an adult while Thucydides and Hippocrates were still alive. I wanna translate this. Yang luar biasanya lagi, mereka memiliki begitu banyak dokumen dan mereka telah teruji oleh waktu. Mereka juga memiliki dekret Perikles yang dimana dari 495 sampai 429 sebelum Masehi, yaitu yang dipaparkan oleh Bapak Demokrasi, tulisan-tulisan sejarawan Thucydides, dan karya-karya yang dikaitkan dengan Hippocrates dari tahun 460 sampai 377 sebelum Masehi yang dipaparkan oleh Bapak kedokteran yang dari barat. Jika kita melihat tanggal menentukan kehidupan tiga orang tersebut, kemudian membandingkan dengan tanggal-tanggalnya, kita dapat mempertimbangkan sebagai pendiri orator klasik. Dan kita melihat bahwa Socrates seorang mahasiswa yang akan menjadi dewasa selama hidup. And the next, the Aristotle, the father of modern public speaking. Aristoteles, yaitu bapak dari modern public speaking. Aristoteles seemed to be interested in everything from poetry to zoology, drama to physics, astronomy, logic, and physics. Math wasn't his strong unit. He began attending the academy at the age of 18, studying with Plato, who was then in his 60s. He opened his own school in 335 BCE, the Lyceum, and it is from either his own notes or student notes related. Jadi Aristoteles tampaknya di sini dia tertarik pada segala hal, mulai dari puisi hingga zoologi. I don't know what the meaning of zoology. Drama hingga fisika, astronomi, logika, dan fisika. Matematika dia tidak begitu pandai, tetapi dia menguasainya. Dia mulai menghadiri akademi pada umur 18 tahun. Dia belajar dengan Plato yang saat itu berusia 60 tahunan. Dia membuka sekolahnya sendiri pada tahun 335 sebelum Masehi. Dan itu berasal dari catatannya sendiri dan catatan siswa terkait dengan bacaan yang memiliki banyak informasi tentang apa yang diajarkannya. And next, the Lyceum that we have a great deal of information about both what he taught and how he taught. And next, he identified the basic elements of good speech and persuasion as ethos, logos, and pathos. Aristoteles mengidentifikasi elemen-elemen dasar ucapan dan persuasi yang baik sebagai ethos, logos, dan pathos. The ethos is credibility, believability of the speaker, of the speaker was important. The logos or logic behind any conclusion drawn by the speaker during the course of the speech needed to be valid and clear. And the pathos is emotional appeals were important in making human connection between the speaker and the listener. Jadi, ethos ini adalah kredibilitas, kepercayaan pembicara, kredibilitas kepercayaan pembicara yang sangat penting. Logos yaitu logika di balik setiap kesimpulan yang ditarik oleh pembicara selama pidato perlu valid dan jelas. Serta pathos, daya tarik emosional, penting dalam membuat hubungan manusia antara pembicara dan pendengar. Okay, the next explanation by Nabila.
Okay, I will continue for the explain contemporary speaking. In the United States, the right to our freedom of speech is more than what's on the page of yellow parchment on display in Washington, D.C. prior to the adoption of the Bill of Rights. A citizen could be arrested, tried, and hung by the neck until death for speaking out against government's policy. When Patrick Henry famously declaimed, "Give me liberty or give me death," on March 20, 200, he was overstating the case. He was answering words that were written in English, and the colonized were still English. Could he have been exalted for speaking his mind? Okay, I will translate. Di United States ada orang yang tidak setuju dengan tidak kebebasannya berbicara. Jadi dia mengatakan, beri saya kebebasan atau saya akan mati oleh pemerintah. Dia menentang pemerintah untuk bisa meminta kebebasannya berbicara kepada kolonis yang ada di Inggris. Dia mengatakan jika dia tidak diberi kebebasan, dia akan mati. Itu sebabnya dia menentang pemerintah kalau bisa diberikannya kebebasan. The next, Henry Clay earned a reputation for passivity and oratory as the great compromiser, engineering the great compromiser of 1850, which we now has the Missouri Compromise today. Through his impassioned speaking in the U.S. Senate, and although few of you might remember hearing him speaking during the early 1960s, President John F. Kennedy words, "Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country." Stirred hearts and minds at this, ultimately leading hundreds of young Americans to enlist in the new Peace Corps after its establishment just a few months later. Jadi Henry Clay itu meningkatkan reputasi dengan mengadakan kongres yang dinamakan Great Compromiser pada tahun 1850 di US Senate. Mereka mengadakan sendiri perkumpulan di kongres itu untuk bisa melakukan kebebasan untuk berbicara di pemerintahan. Presiden John F. Kennedy ini mengatakan, jangan tanya pada negaramu apa yang bisa dilakukan padamu, tapi tanya padamu untuk apa yang kamu bisa lakukan pada negaramu. Okay, the next summary.
The principles that we use in contemporary public speaking classrooms have been around for a very long time. We've renamed some of those concepts and we've refined them to meet the needs of a society that's relies on mass communication for a much of our interaction. It's important to understand why these principles perhaps when they did what it was in Greece and in Rome. That's allowed for the flourishing of oratorical theory building as well as skill sets. It's equally important to understand that we define ourselves culturally by the things we say and the things that are said about us. So we can conclude that starting has always had easy and improved strategies with a certain concept. Jadi dapat kita simpulkan bahwa contemporary public speaking atau public speaking modern ini sudah mudah untuk dilaksanakan dengan beberapa strategi yang disebutkan oleh teman saya tadi. Itu bisa mengatakan bahwa kita bisa mengatakan diri kita sendiri dengan budaya kita, apa yang kita katakan dan apa yang orang lain katakan kepada kita. Okay.
Until here our explanation. Thanks for your attention and
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.